What's happening?
Hey,
What's happening? What's happening, blues people? Now, I usually wait to get a little audience, but we're not going to wait this evening because we are. So we're speaking to a sister that covers a lot of ground in our tradition, from song to folk art, teaching, performance. You know, I think we just need to get into it, Sister Candice. What you say?
that sounds good.
So I'm gonna put the call out a couple of times for anyone who is rolling with us on a Monday night, as you say, Monday Night Blues.
That's right. We just chilling on a Monday night bluesing.
Okay, so anybody rolling with us on a Monday Night Blues, I'm gonna put the call out. If you have any questions, just throw them on out there. All right. So now we're speaking of Sister Candice. I mean, first of all, this is not her first go round, but this one, like all the others, but this one is interesting on many levels, right? So you're paying homage to someone, and yeah, you see, I pointed to her in the back.
That's right. I love this. You know, I love that.
Yeah.
Mine is upstairs.
You're paying homage to someone, and you're doing it. I hate to use this term because it's the word holds a bad connotation, but you have interpretation. You have a way of you taking it, making it your own, but keeping it in pocket to the roots.
Right.
So before we get into your story and everything, and the story of this project, please tell us the name of the project.
I just so happen to have a copy right here. It's When the Levee Breaks, the music of Memphis Minnie. And it's been quite an undertaking. I'm so proud to be able to be a person who's part of bringing her legacy to the forefront, and especially on the 50th anniversary of her passing. So this has so much meaning for me.
Right. I mean, so first, let's not slide past that being the 50th anniversary of her transcension, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, she was born in 1873.
Oh my goodness. I forget her actual birthday, but she passed. I would say it's about there because of her age when she passed. So
okay, the reason why I say that, and just so you know, nothing is ever to put you on the spot, but there's a reason I asked you that, because Memphis Minnie, during the era of what enthusiasts, academics, folklorists, and cultural anthropologists claim to be the classic blues era, where women was the front person and the musicians were in the back, and they were just a voice in all this. We have a woman.
I want to say she's like 1890s, late 1890s. So like reconstructive period.
Okay. So and so she's coming up in the era where, if we look through history, I'm not saying it wasn't prevalent then in the communities, but as it's documented, there weren't many women guitar slingers.
Right. Right.
You know, she kind of breaks the mold on many levels. So my first question to you is, what was it of the many things of Memphis Minnie, Lizzie, that called you to venerate and honor her in this way?
She has just been a person of fascination for me for a really long time. And just the way she was, I just felt the kindred spirit because, as you mentioned, there's not very many others who do, guitar and play during, the time when she was making her recordings. So we're talking about those, late 20s, early 30s recordings that she's making. And she's kind of alone in this canon, and especially the style that she's doing. Because most of the, singers of that period are coming from more of a, almost vaudeville type background. They're coming from a lot of, showbiz in the sense that, plays and, theater circuits. Many didn't come from that. And that's the thing that I could relate to because, I wasn't a kid with musical theater training or anything like this. It was just kind of a raw draw to it, and it was just something that was always part of my life. Now my first instrument is piano, so that also makes this like really different for me because I love the guitar. But I have felt a sense of, especially in the blues music, I felt that people don't have kind of strayed away from the voice as a focal point. So there's so many amazing guitarists. I'm not going to have time to like practice to be at the level that I would want to be at to play. I know what I want to hear. I can envision it, and I don't have time to do that. And my nails, I'm not about to take that time. I'm painting, I'm teaching. I got to work on my main instrument, so right. You have to ask us, you got to, pick and choose your battles. So with this, I was like, well, sure, I could be shedding and working on this. And I play a little, but it's for my personal, it's my private personal thing where I get to just enjoy that, But I did enlist the help of a master guitar player for this project because they would have to be. I've watched people struggle with Minnie's music. I've watched people struggle with my own and, and understanding me. So I really could relate to her. And then I'm imagining her, with even less options as me in today's society as a Black woman from the South navigating this terrain. Right. And I'm like, this woman made, over 200 records, excuse me. How did she do that in a time period when you literally don't even hear her voice? Her voice is those records. But beyond that, we got a lot of conjecture. Most of it's not directly from the mouth of Minnie. So that was just fascinating to me. And I was like, here's a person who has a very loud voice, but it's almost like a tree that's falling in this forest because they're not paying her the homage that she deserves. They're not giving her the direct accolades when she is literally covered by everyone. I mean, literally everyone's doing Memphis Minnie. All the greats that we love.
I think, yes, I think she has a longer catalog than P.D. Wheatstraw. Who had a long because a lot of these folk didn't have, when I say folk, our blues forefathers and mothers, a lot of them, even with their surnames and monikers so they can record, I don't think it comes close to Minnie's discography. Like, she really put that work in, and
imagine the drive you have to have for that. Imagine the connections you'd have to have for that, the ability to do that. How did that happen? How did that happen? And it's not happened again. We don't see anybody else with that catalog. We don't see even Ma Rainey, even Bessie Smith. We don't see that catalog. Alberta Hunter, Victoria Spivey. We don't see that catalog. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, we need to give this woman, this woman deserves some propers. Let's give her the propers she deserves.
Well, let me ask you, and if you don't know exactly, you share what you, I guess, what you feel on the topic. why do you think she's somewhat glanced over, if you will?
Well, I do think there's a lot of reasons for it. And no reason is better than the other. I think when it comes to the entire blues canon of women singers, I think that everyone is overlooked. So
Wow.
it's not like she's just isolated here. I think that because of how all these breakdowns, all the way people have kind of considered these genres, I think it's easy for people to kind of get pushed in one direction or another, and that can lead to obscurity. It's like
Right.
it's hard to pinpoint, that. But I will say it's overwhelmingly telling that if you look at the canon of blues for women, like you say, well, who's the greatest blues musician that ever lived? Some people may give you a B.B. King. They may give you, they may give you a Robert Johnson, but they have a focal point to give you. But if you ask that question in the context of a woman, who is the best female blues singer? Well, now we got some divides. Now we're asking what is a blues singer now? Are they R&B? Are they blues? Is it jazz? Is it, now we don't have a imposing figure in the way that we could look back. But I'm arguing that it's Minnie, that we do have one, and it's her.
So I have to tell you, I agree with you, and I'm gonna tell you why I agree with you. If we're looking at the gauge of what blues is supposed to be fully, not with one component, but all of the components of blues, Minnie fits the bill.
No question. She got the folklore. She got the image. She had the money. She had the men. She had the whiskey. She had the car. You know what I mean? She had it all, and she got the sides to boot, and she could outplay folks, and they still, they couldn't win in those head-cutting competitions. So I think that we have to go ahead and, just say, look, this legacy is grand. It's great. And we should see her as frequently as we see somebody like Frida Kahlo, because that's what she is. She's our patron saint of the blues. That's what I call her.
I like that. I would also mention she's a saint of the blues with gold teeth and a 45, or was it a 38?
Either one. I don't think she really cared what. I don't think she was going to be choosy if she needed to use it.
Something? I want to ask you this before we get to one of your pieces, because I want to definitely speak to you about a few of them. But I wanted to ask you this before we get to that. Considering at the time she was everything that you just described, right? Mm-hmm. And for those who are just tuning in, I'm speaking to Candice Ivory, right? The name of this one, right? The Queen of Avant Soul, and she's singing the blues. And the album, that we're discussing, her current album, When the Levees Break, the music of Memphis Minnie. And if you have any questions for Candice, please drop a line. So,
please.
That's right. So, everything that you just mentioned, she had to face, right? So we're talking about pretty much early after the turn of the century. Based on what I believe, she was already recording in like 1912, right? So if she's traveling around, right? If she's traveling around these dangerous landscapes for Black folk in general, the lynching, you're getting picked up for all these type of things,
right?
What is her mind frame? Is she a revolutionary? Is she a feminist? Is she just a gangster? What do you think her identity? And this is really, this is not history or factual, but just
right.
what you kind of believe.
We all making our conjectures about how we envision her.
Yes,
you know,
ma'am.
because
Yes, ma'am.
we don't have the literal voice. We've got the voice through the music, and that gives us some insight. But I mean, we can't always take that 100%. You know, like there's a lot of lies in the blues. That's the fun part about it. we like to tell stories. We like them big and grand. You know, so I mean, but I will say, to be able to do the things that she did and to basically come from Walls, Mississippi, which I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's just outside of Memphis, right before you get to Tunica off Highway 61. And when you see the vastness of this land, which, you know, these terrains have changed, but her family church is still there and she's buried there with her husband. And you see how far she had to get just to get to Memphis. And that's a kid leaving home, you know, to go find a better opportunity. And then you think about the same person going to Chicago to do all this work and record. I know some brothers from the block back home who have never been to Chicago right now. Mm-hmm. You know, I got cousins who will not travel to St. Louis just to come visit. So it's like, you just imagine how that must have been for a woman on her own in that time period. She's an extremely courageous person. She's an extremely driven person. And I'm sure she heard no plenty, but was able to, you know, artfully find the way to, you know, find her dreams and get accomplished the things that she wanted to get accomplished. And I think that discography had to be really important to her, because a lot of the stories that we're told, like, I mean, if you've seen Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, you see how she basically took a different attitude where she's like, they're coming here to see me. I'm going to make them wait to see me. They don't really respect me. This is where I get to be in charge. Mm-hmm. And so then your sides do suffer for that, because that's time that you're not making records. Right. It's kind of like it's the control you have, but it also can be a hindrance to your legacy. So it's kind of like you have to be an astute businesswoman, which she clearly was, you know, to be able to navigate that and then be able to still get the credit over her husband in a time period where she's recording with him, to still be known separately from him as her own entity. That's interesting.
You know, that's extremely interesting, considering those who don't revere her as much as you and I, and quite a few people in the blues community, music community for that matter. Yeah. I guess they try to say Candice Jo first, but if you really speak to people who love the music, period, not necessarily just study it and go about it the way we do, I would say most people don't know who Candice Jo is, but they all know who Memphis Minnie is. Right.
And I mean, we can just look at let's ask ourselves about that discography. How much did he do separate? You know, what's he got with her? What's he got to separate from her? And so then we can assess, well, who's still who is the reigning?
Right. So on that note, I want to play a snippet from this album. All right.
All right.
And then we're going to talk about it.
Let's do it.
Won't you be my chauffeur?
So that was quite. I didn't like that. It was too abrupt. I got to figure that one out. I think I figured it out. Okay.
Those nice little segues.
Yeah, I'll deal with that later, but I just figured it out. Sorry. So what I want, what I want to talk to you about on that is, you took some artistic liberties there.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way. I just want to make sure I'm setting it up that way, but it's not bad. It's great, but I want to make sure that's established. So talk to us about those liberties, because I hear a lot of just more contemporary Black roots involved in this. Talk to us about that.
I just tried to approach this from the standpoint of, let's let the song speak for itself. Let's think about the songs. Because, she's got such a huge discography that we could literally, we could have made so many albums. We could have made the longest album. And that wasn't necessarily my point. I was like, there's a lot of tunes that we could look at from her. She's got so many killer tunes. And there's eras of Memphis Minnie. But I feel like people regard Memphis Minnie. I feel like people don't closely listen to Memphis Minnie. And, I also know that if the Minnie I imagine and envision would not particularly care for me mimicking her.
Right.
You know what I mean? She would not particularly care for me being some sort of like refried version of herself, or a little Memphis Minnie. I'd be little Memphis Minnie right now if if I just did that. And I think that I really wanted people to kind of think about her in a different way. And I wanted people to think about her in a way that I envision she may perhaps think of herself. So there's stages of Minnie's music, and a lot of people get very fixated on the 1920s Memphis Minnie, the early 1930s stuff. They get fixated there because they're looking for this old sound. By this time, Minnie has not perfected her voice. She's not crafted it the way, but the stages of her vocal evolution, you can definitely hear it, by the time we're starting to get into some of that, later 40s. And then you can kind of see her envisioning herself. She's got gold teeth and rings, but she's a classy woman.
Absolutely.
She's a woman she's wearing $200 wigs. These aren't cheap things. She's buying a VA Ford, she's got a VA. And it's like, you see Memphis Minnie going to Chicago. This is a statement. I'm aspiring for something other than what has been presented to me in my environment. She has country Delta. This is where I come from, but I do have higher aspirations. She's wearing fine dresses on her, publicity materials.
That's right.
And yes, there's a rough version of that to her, and she has to have that rough version to survive and to work in the very male-dominated and, kind of men on the rougher edge of society. She's got to learn how to navigate that, but she's doing it in like ball gowns. So she's doing this successfully, looking good. And, I just think that what I wanted to present was, if I were Memphis Minnie today, how would I be approaching this? Memphis Minnie today, that might be a person who's going to be something like a Beyonce or a Nicki Minaj, because she's trying to do her best. She's wanting to present herself in a way that, is going to bring her money, riches, wealth, be the top of the game in that industry. So I think that's the presentation that I wanted to show. And musically, I do not deviate from her melodies at all. So that's really important, because she wrote very strong melodies. All I have to do is sing them, and sing them with the idea that if my voice were Minnie's, if she
Right.
could use this instrument this way, how would she approach this vocal?
I dig it. So if in fact Minnie was not polarizing some of these experiences that she sang about, what did you tap into to be able to reach that emotion in this era, if you will?
You asking me, am I crazy? How did you tap into that Minnie energy? Okay, without telling on myself, I'll say we all have that in us, that ability to be like, okay, I do think that a lot of Minnie's folklore, I will say this is a businesswoman. This person is fairly reasonable. Some of these stories spun about her, she knows that the audience is gonna not question it. They're gonna be fine with it, and
Right.
so I don't think that she minded some of the, more glamorous things happening or even scandalous things happening.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, it's funny how people will talk to me about Minnie and they'll just say like, yeah, she used to turn tricks between sets, things like this. It aggravates me because of the fact that in all of her publicity photos, she's standing there with her husband. She's twice married that we know about.
Right.
And she's always presented this music this way. So it's just an interesting thing that people will not guess or second guess this when they're even visually presented with maybe a different perspective from a Black woman. But it's easy for that to be something that could be, well, that could be true. Could it? Or could it be? And could it be a rumor? Could a guy who didn't like the way she played make that? People like, well, we've seen that women in the blues world, can typically take up sex work. Some could,
some did.
Some did.
All, right? And it's like,
some did.
Because,
and I mean, and perhaps she did. And my point is, whether she did or whether she didn't, when it comes to the facts and the way we think about that, knowing how literally all of our male blues heroes are singing about what they've done and for free, why is that the first thing that pops up when we're discussing her?
No, I agree.
It's like, put some respect on her name, though.
You're 1,000% correct, because I mean, if just looking at the whole picture, they're not just disrespecting this woman, they're calling her husband a pimp. I mean, the whole...
It's a possibility, but the culture is a subculture. It is a culture of, this is the Saturday night with the devil. These are the houses of ill repute where you hear this music. I'm not saying these things may or may not be true. I'm just saying that when it comes to the legacy of women in blues, and especially hers, it's like there's literally no variety as far as how rigid the view can be. And even when we're talking about, Minnie stands out for a lot of reasons. One, she is not known for, presenting as, as lesbian or, having, a different outlook or a sexual partner. She's very much, being a straight woman in her music. And so this is an interesting thing, because when you have so many of our other blues divas, they're LGBTQ. And so it's like they have this other world that we actually don't see much of in Minnie's perspective. So that's really interesting and fascinating to me. And then it's also fascinating that even with that, she still doesn't escape a sexual scenario that, shows her in a certain type of light. So I'm just interested as to why that happened. Like, did she create this rumor? Is it some guy who's mad that she cut his head? Because things like that happen all the time.
Absolutely.
But I just think it's part of the folklore and the folkloric experience. But I am asking people to let's broaden the ideology here. Let's look at what's actually presented. she ran away from home. Well, people who run away from home don't usually stay in touch with their families.
Right.
They don't usually come back home. Their families don't usually visit them in Chicago. They don't really come back home and stay in nursing homes around their family and have their family with them. So it's like, even if they come back and forth, could this be not as straightforward as it looks? Could it be complex? A complex relationship?
Right. No, I'm so happy when you said that, and 2 through 5, how you broke that down, right? Because we're talking about an era where a lot of things was happening. You know, people get mad at Alice Walker for pulling the wool from over the eyes of what was going on in Black kinship in the South. So we don't know what young Lizzie was running away from. Right.
We have no idea, but typically children this age don't leave, you know? Right. And so if they had to, and we know that, you know, a lot of these, you know, stories say people like Bessie Smith, well, she's got a really rough upbringing. And a lot of women in that tradition of music do. I mean, it's the blues. People know it for its hardships and its suffering. But then we can also look at how do people choose to deal with those obstacles in their life. And somehow, as rough as she had it, she still managed to do something pretty remarkable under the circumstances.
100%. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking to Sister Candice Ivory. The name of this show, I think, is suitable. Queen of Avant Soul sings the blues, and we're talking about her most recent project, When the Levees Break, the music of Memphis Minnie. Again, if you have any questions, drop them in the line. What's up, Shree? What's up? What's my Money Man? What's going on? I had to put that up there one time. What's going on? I think it's a good moment to get into another tune, especially since I think I figured out how to work this thing.
You're gonna give me that smooth, sweet segue this time.
Exactly. It took a minute, and I have to go with this one because this is a popular tune by Minnie. We want to see how Sister Candice worked this out. What do you think?
What's this one?
Hoodoo lady, how do you do? They tell me you take a boot and turn it to a brand new shoe, but don't put that thing on me.
Don't put it on me.
Don't put that thing on me. Don't put that thing on me, 'cause I'm going back to Tennessee. Hoodoo lady, turn water into wine. I've been wondering where you've been all this time. I'm sitting here broke, and I ain't got a dime. You ought to put something in these dudes of mine, but don't put that thing on me, 'cause I'm going back to Tennessee.
That was
fun, right?
Come on, that was so. Who played the guitar on that?
That is the one and only Charlie Hunter, and we've got the great Deshaun Hickman on lap steel. So I was in great hands.
Right, because it did sound like we went from acoustic to another variation of a guitar sound.
Yeah.
And I heard a little mini cadence in your vocalizing. Am I in the ballpark there?
Absolutely. I really tried to be true to her in the vocal styles, as far as how she would approach something. You know, I definitely tried to give a sense of how she may deliver it. And a lot of these, like I said, the melody is what it is. It's like very much, this is her tune, but we're doing everything around it in the sense that we're modernizing, or in some cases, not even modern. I mean, these drums, they've been around for centuries, you know, forever. You know, it's not like, it's just a returning to the root, the foundation, and just, it's really stripped back. So that's the other aspect of it. So it's just for me to try to sing about her hardships her way is not authentically my approach. So my approach is about, is what she's singing about still something relevant to me? And even if it isn't, where can I place that in my experience? Though I'll say I picked out the tunes. So I felt a connection with these. And you guys didn't even know half the stuff that didn't even make it on the album. And literally the one tune I'm really sad that didn't make it on there was Selling My Pork Chops. That tune actually kicked our butt a little bit. Charlie was just kind of, it's hard music. That's the thing. She's difficult musically. It wore us out, you know, to be going through this. And all of these takes are like 1 or 2 takes. We didn't do anything extra. We just decided we're going to come in and record this in the old style of, you know, this is what we have and this is how we're going to approach it this day. So, so that was interesting to me because I didn't really plan on that at all. You know, I'm from the world of vocal stacking and, you know, loving all of the possibilities, but this was just a really stripped down album for me, where I didn't have all of those bells and whistles, or we didn't choose to bring them. And we just chose to let the voice and the melodies stand out as much as possible. And so that's really kind of a different approach for me, who I kind of love having a sonic, you know, undercurrent of things happening. I like all kinds of things happening, and they are here, but it's just much more scaled back. And Charlie was a fantastic producer for that reason, because he had really been tuned into the Blind Blake, and that's what he's been working on. And that's how we kind of connected over this, because he was shedding on Blind Blake. And that stuff's fantastic too.
It's I mean, understatement, right? Blind Blake, Blind Willie. So, you know, I was going to use the terminology sonic, and you brought it up because even though you describe it as bare bones, which is what the music could have be considered in the early days, I don't know how much of bare bones really it was, considering some of these folk played one instrument and it sounded like an orchestra. So I'm not sure, but to your point, I do understand what you mean, and I have to say, sonically, the album sounds tremendous.
Hey, thank you. We really tried to conceptualize the whole thing and be really conscientious of it, because we knew that there's certain variables that we just can't get back. Like, we weren't going to be in Chicago or Walls, Mississippi, you know, we weren't going to have Sonny Lance Slim on piano, you know, there were just a couple things that weren't going to happen. So we had to figure out, like, for us, what makes sense in this context that we can bring our experiences as musicians. And everybody brought their own vibe to it. And we just have such a good chemistry. Like, my buddy George Sluppick from Memphis also was playing drums. And then we had Atiba Rory and Reverend Hampton. They came in and they brought, you know, all this amazing percussion, and they study Yoruba. And so we all had that connection. And then we had Deshaun with the Sacred Steel, kind of bringing us this forward-thinking lap steel that's, you know, because when people hear that, they think about country, they think about bluegrass. You know, Deshaun plays this like an organ almost. It's like, it's a very unique approach to the steel guitar. And so him bringing that, and then me kind of in a lot of these different worlds. Charlie like had studied me and knew that I was listening to all these different types of music. Like 1 minute, you know, I'm listening to Jane's Addiction, and then the next minute it's like, you know, I don't know, you know, if James is, you know, so it's just it's a lot of variety. And so I have a lot of music daily in my life, and all of it's vastly different. And so I'm always intrigued about what people are listening to. And I'm not saying that people would even be as varied in listening to their music as they do. A lot of people curate sound tracks and playlists for the specific things they want to listen to.
Right.
I can be that way sometimes too, you know. I mean, if I'm trapping, I just want to hear trap music at this time. I'm in here listening. I'm trapping on the treadmill.
If it's trap, it's trap. But that's part of the blues, though.
Right. And so it's part of it. And it's like, it's just, that's where I'm at in that world that day. And I noticed Money Man was mentioning Blind Blake. Yes, I stayed with Charlie and his wife during the week of this recording. And I was just stressed out the whole time that he was going to be up at like 5 o'clock in the morning playing Blind Blake, because he's so obsessed with it. And he's just like sheds on that all day. I was like, man, I don't know if I can get up and sing the blues at 5 a.m. like this, man. Charlie's an intense guy. He had a man cave. Thank you. We were like,
right,
okay,
right.
I'm not expected to do that at 5. Okay.
Well, I mean, the way, if you let me tell it, y'all supposed to be just coming in from singing at 5,
right,
making some grits.
Right.
But I'm not mad at his dedication, though. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, these guys, they are beasts. Oh.
So you know what? I think I want to get us to maybe one more tune before. Okay, so I want to play this one, and I want to talk about it because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's an interpretation to this bad boy. And I could be wrong, but we're gonna pull this one up. I want to
if it keeps on raining, Levee's going to break. If it keeps on raining, Levee's going to break. And the water gon' come in, have no place to stay. Well, all last night, sat on a levee and moaned. Well, all last night, sat on a levee and moaned. Thinking about my baby and my happy home. If it keeps on raining, Levee's going to break. If it keeps on raining, Levee's going to break. And all these people have no place to stay. Now look here, Daddy, what I'm gonna do. Now look here, Daddy, what I'm gonna do. I ain't got nobody tell my troubles to. I works on the levee, man, both night and day.
Miss Candice,
I works on the levee, man, both night and day.
this is something serious.
Thank you.
Oh, you see this, right? I'm getting the hang of the fade. I'm getting the hang of the fade.
Hey, take it. See, that's next level. Yep.
So talk to us, right? Because there's a lot going on here. I feel it. It's like blues. So non-black folk brought blues to the bistro.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you bringing blues back to its real spiritual Orisha. Am I in the right place?
You're right. You're right. You're hearing it. You feeling those drums. You know, because that's where the true power lies. You know, they tried to silence our drums.
Right.
So that's the power. That's the voice. That's Minnie's voice amplifies mine. My voice amplifies Minnie, and the drums amplify us all. So definitely wanted to bring that presence, that, you know, that spirit and energy to the music. Because for me, it's, you know, I grew up in the blues with, you know, having a legendary Uncle Wilroy Sanders of Fieldstones, and growing up with those guys. And so I saw some negative aspects of it. You know, I see a lot of people like, you know, really wanting to fight and champion that. And I'm like, listen, most of us did directly turn our back on it, and there was a reason for it, and I get it. But I also think that that reason is due to a limited perception. And so when you're kind of like dealing with these spiritual and religious judgments of people, that's just something that comes up, especially in the South. I think that's not something that people necessarily deal with quite on the level as the Bible Belt, but it's still very much a conscientious daily thing that I know several musicians struggled with. And, you know, I just think it's interesting. I mean, Memphis Minnie recorded gospel tunes as well. It's interesting because people look at it like that's something that she just did for money, but I'm like, well, sure, she got paid, but at the same part, that's just part of her culture. That's just part of where we come from. It's that dynamic. I can remember being out with the Fieldstones one night after they were playing at the club, and, you know, these are men in their late 70s. You know, I'm sitting out there, we barbecuing at 5 and 6 in the morning, and about 7:30, the deacons started driving to church. And I mentioned it. I remember mentioning it to Mr. Wordy. I said, hey, look, Mr. Wordy, they're getting ready to go to church. And he was like, well, we just left. And I was like, all right. All right. But, you know, I got to go sing in the choir. Boy, I can't be out here with y'all all night. I'm still expecting. I got to go to church. I got to get on down. So, that was how it was, you know.
I do know. I remember just my own experience. We turned from partying to someone cooking up some fish and grits and pulling out a Bible.
Right.
And then my favorite bluesman outside of Memphis Minnie, Son House, about singing the blues, and then Sunday morning putting his guitar down and just getting right into a sermon.
You know, it's they gotta live together.
But let me ask you a question. You touched on it, but I have to drive home, because when I say drive home, drive this point home, right? Because what it's kind of ironic, and I was able to interview Sun Power recently, and he spoke up to this. You know, our family, our Southern family, not all but some, right? On one side is like very strict Christians,
right.
Pentecostal, Methodists, Baptists. But on the other side, they actively participate in hoodoo and voodoo without giving it its name, in terms of dusting in front of the door and all these other different things that, you know, I'm saying tongue-in-cheek things. I don't want to get too much into it.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And in some cases, they're literally not bashing it, but they're practicing it and calling it Pentecostal or Pentecostal. Could you? And it's in the music, right? Could you talk to us about that?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I have families that are, you know, family members that have been practitioners of this, and, you know, have feelings about medicine men, conjure, you know, will purchase from them. And I mean, but there's also a reverence for what's considered to be root medicine. And you know, that's still something that you could go to Memphis. You could go buy it from Dr. Champion. The late Dr. Champion has a shop on, you know, Elvis Presley, I think. And you can go down there and get it. They got root medicine. They wouldn't necessarily call it hoodoo, but these are things that, you know, herbs. He's an herbologist, he was. And so on one hand, you got people who absolutely believe in this, who will go to church and will not call it this, but it's literally, you know, it's root medicine. So, you know, I do think, I guess we could be like tomato with that. But also, of course, we've got our folkloric stories about that one uncle who just, you know, obviously had special magical dusts and powders and things of this nature. So it does exist, and you know, it's but that's the fun part too.
That is the fun part. So when are you and the musicians, were you venerating any orishas as you, because you know it's, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we have this in our culture, this concept of going to the crossroads, right? I don't know if that was started by us. I know Tommy Johnson capitalized on that. Petey Wheatstraw, the Devil's Son-in-Law, then it was placated to Robert Johnson. I don't know of him saying this, but it was put to him. So we know the crossroads story. And then we have, what is it called? Ostension? When these folk, non-blues people, they go down to these places and try to live these experiences, you know, and the Pentecostal and hoodoo version of me is like, don't go messing with my people's spirits. What kind of games are we playing here? You know, but now I get it, and I you know, I don't want to deter someone from their way of, I guess, honoring our culture and tradition and ancestors, but it's a little weird for me with this ostension. So as you do your travels, right? Because you are one of the few people who are able to speak to and build good, solid relationships with everyone, right? And you travel around a lot. So when I say everyone, I mean not just blues people.
Right.
When you go so when you go into these places and you're seeing this, knowing certain things, and then kind of tapping into Memphis Minnie and her journey, what's your thoughts with the you know, with these folklores, these legends, and then the people who go to like play it out in real time?
Wow, man, you got some heavy questions here. There's a lot to unpack. I mean, I'm gonna need a B-section. You know, wow, that is a lot when I think about it, because you know, I was going through my head in the thoughts. I mean, so for example, I'm of a couple of different minds of it, which is why I'm the inquisitive one. So like I've always got questions. I'm gonna, you know, in the world of blues is a blues of no, you don't ask many questions here. We don't want to know some of these answers. Right. But at the same time, I'm a naturally inquisitive person. So the first question I'll say, yes, there were definitely orishas involved, my own personal, and that I venerate and deal with, and also the musicians as well. So you see, I'm in a car, me and my chauffeur. No accident, this tune is the first. No accident that I'm in a Cadillac, which is my preference. And that particular Cadillac, which is one of my really good friends, Tad Pearson, an artist and, you know, just a real visionary artist to me and an influence for me. But that's Ogun. So that is, you know, the trailblazing God. That is the deity of iron and protects the vehicle. So we've got a lot of that. We got the Oshun energy of Memphis Minnie. We've got Shango, got these drums, you know. there's a lot of, and then we've got the nature, the color of the grizz blue dress I've got on. That's the nurturing spirit of Yemaya. You know, we've got a lot in there.
Right.
I put a lot in there. And so you won't catch everything right away. It won't be one of those things. It's something that I want people to revisit and think, well, what did she mean by this? You'll go in, you'll see there's statues in some of these pictures where they're placed in odd places. There's different things there. There's African whisks. And, you know, the cover photo, you know, there's a Bonnie Raitt album, and her debut album. We just kind of wanted to like set a scene that was similar to Bonnie Raitt to pay an homage to her for creating that headstone that allowed people to go and recognize Minnie. And so when it comes to, you know, I think about it this way. Well, when I was in Rome, I visited the Vatican. You know, we've got all these saints there. You've got the holy water. You can participate. It's your choice. And you've got all the saints. And you can choose. You've got all the popes. And you've got the ones that are buried underneath the floors. You've got these ornate buildings. You've got some of the most amazing art in the whole world's there. So, you know, you get the choice of what you want to tune into. And I think that it's all spiritual energy. It's all energy. It doesn't matter, you know, if I'm looking at the statue of David, if I'm looking at a Rodin, it doesn't matter if I'm in a juke joint singing the blues. The energy that I take from that, you know, and this is why I call myself a Southern surrealist. These are the lens through which I want to look at my world, and I get the ability to choose and filter what I'm going to take in. And I'm just saying that when we're taking in, especially these artists who deal with the past energies, and the musics of those energies, because I notice everybody's on a 60s kick. Well, let's think about culturally, what's the impact of this music? Let's think about culturally, what's the vibrational element involved in it? And so
frequency.
I didn't want to bring some of those frequencies into 2023. I wanted to bring a fresh and loving perspective here. And so this is the one that I'm choosing to be on, no matter what my genre is. I want to let people know. And my last album, or my previous album before this, was love music. And that can mean multiple things. And, you know, in the context of this album right now, I'm hoping people see that's what we're pitching for, togetherness. If we're going to be evaluating, you know, the state of blues, the state of the world, the state of relationships, we got to do that together, because no experience is a bubble, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, they speak of convergence culture. That's not a new concept.
Right.
The title, framing, you can say is current. Shout out to Sister Nia, shout out to Sister Kelly, you know, and my man Jason. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking to, you see the name is right there, Sister Candice Ivory, right?
Hey, y'all.
And we're talking about her current project, When the Levee Breaks, the music of Memphis Minnie. And in this veneration, I think before I get to my last question, I think I want to pull up one last tune to let you kind of break down one last thing.
Okay.
Let's see. What would you suggest?
I got a lot of tunes I love on here. It depends on what you want to talk about, because if you have a specific question.
Well, we played Hoodoo Lady. We played When the Levees Break. Did we play Pile Driving Blues. Let's go there. And I'm seeing that I have a little better handle.
All right, easing into it.
And I got some soul.
He drove this pile, his hammer's all worn out. He drove this pile, his hammer's all worn out. 'Cause when he do his driving, I begin to jump and shout. Want all you people just to understand. Want all you people just to understand that when he do his driving, drive just like a man. Got me a young girl driving this craze. Got me a young girl driving this craze. I'm gonna drive him so hard, drive him to his grave.
So that's some serious soul funk blues. What?
That Charlie's a funky guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, what was the inspiration to take that song and give it that kind of spin? Like I felt like blown out of afro and walk around like Dr. J.
It's funny because that tune is really funky.
Yeah.
And it's just like, actually Minnie doesn't sing that one. That's actually a Joe song that I took and made it my way because, he was kind of complaining about being the pile driver a little bit. I was like, well, let's just, let's see what happens. So Charlie's like, look, I got this groove. I was like, let's go with it. Then I had to force the man to go in and take that solo. I said, no, I need you to give me my blues solo. One of the things about this album is that people are like, wow, there's, it's refreshingly, I think one writer said it was refreshingly ego-free in the sense that we didn't try to make it be about that guitar-driven sensibility, which, I mean, obviously Minnie and Joe were all about that though. But
in a different extent though, right? But go ahead. I'll talk about that in a second. Sorry, go ahead.
Right, but I was like, well, Charlie's the man. He can play. He's amazing. He's made his own instruments, but he dictated how he was going to showcase that to make the songs be what they needed to be. And that was the really cool part. But I was like, man, come on, get in there and give us that solo. He's like, seriously? And it was just funny to watch him be like, I don't know. And then he went in and he just nailed this, this Albert Collins style solo. And we're all just laughing, watching him do it because we're just talking and laughing. I actually have some footage of this. I need to share it because it's great. I do. I should share it because it's so funny. We're all just like, oh my God, wow.
and this is what and again, hats off, kudos to your musicians and to Mr. Charlie, right? Because there is this thing where there's a fine line between playing blues guitar and then getting lost in ego perpetuated shred.
Right.
And so I can understand why he was like, no. But I also understand why it was necessary for it to be there. And what he did was just right. But I do want to talk to that real quick because based on what the critic said when the writer, right? Because I don't want to give people the wrong idea. It wasn't critiquing the album. They were giving it a much love write up. But with, you mentioned Memphis and Kansas City Joe were driven guitarists in their music.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, don't you think it's a little difference how their approach to the instrument in blues in comparison to what the writer and your fabulous guitarist was talking about?
Definitely. I think, when we think about their approach to blues, and the thing that makes it so hard is the innateness of it. It's like literally how she thinks about it, how he thinks about it, in, this kind of great collaboration. We approached it that way. I didn't have, a stringed instrument in this case. I do play cello, but I'm not playing it at that level. I'm not shedding like that on it. I'm not about to bring a stringed instrument at all around, Charlie or Deshaun right now. but they're so gracious, and they would teach me whatever I wanted to know. But right now I'm working. Duck Holmes did challenge me about it. He was like, really giving me a lot of crap about this last time I saw him. Like, well, we got a tradition and I want to see you do it. And I'm like, okay, well, I do need the time to work on that part of my expression.
Now we're talking about Jimmy Duck Holmes from Bentonia. You got to make that clear who you're talking about.
Mr. Duck. Yes, Mr. Duck gave me a lot of challenges. And he says, this is something that he would like to see me do. So for him, I've obviously been wrestling with this,
right.
And thinking about that tradition. But I've been so fascinated with the singers. Skip James's voice is just amazing. So like I'm tuning into a lot of the song stylings, and then I think when I feel ready to just sit, I do have my guitars. They're ready, but you just have to be ready to do that when you're ready. Right. So It's one of those things. We have tried to approach that musically in our production without adding me as a player, because it just wasn't necessary when Charlie had his. There was just no need for me to show up with instruments,
Right. It's something for you also to be able to say, I don't need to insert myself here. They got this.
Right. They got me.
That's good. So I have to ask you quickly. I want to slide away from this project for a moment, specifically because you brought up Mr. Jimmy.
Yes.
You have a project with Mr. Jimmy. Matter of fact, for those of you tuning in, this is Sister Candice who wrote the piece in the last issue of the African American Folklorist, featuring Jimmy Duck Holmes and the great stuff they're doing down in Bentonia. Do you want to talk to the project with him that you're working on?
Yes, he is. Well, basically, Jimmy's come out with some new projects. He just had a release on Easy Eye Sound that was also featuring R.L. Boyce, our late great R.L. Boyce, who we just lost. And then also Robert Finley, who is just fantastic. So many fantastic singers they've been able to work with, and musicians. But for my CD release weekend here in St. Louis, I was able to bring Jimmy out to the university to do some performing. And he worked with William Lee Ellis, who I'm a huge fan of, and who has basically been in my career since I was about 14, 15 years old. I've known him that long. He saw some of my very first performances. So it was such an honor to have them here supporting this project. And then we did kind of the old school version of Memphis Minnie. Bill played with me at the National Blues Museum, and we did Memphis Minnie with his, banjos and, his guitars from the 1930s. And that was Memphis Minnie more in the kind of way people might have expected to hear her. And the voice still shines and the melody still shines, because that's just how strong of a writer she was. So that was just a fun approach. And I think that's the thing I want people to step away from knowing, is that we'll always be doing it, but it'll never be the same. It won't be that. It'll always be a new iteration of her music, and give us the freedom to not, handcuff us to a sound. But Jimmy has been doing the Bentonia Blues Festivals. He's got the anniversary of the actual restaurant in Juke that happens in September. And then there's a festival for the entire town of Bentonia that happens every June. I think it's like the weekend of June 13th through the 15th this year, 2024. And, it's just such a fun place to be. He's there. Lots of amazing people come through. And just for that feeling of, you've got a train that runs right through town. It's like, if you want to step into that feeling and feel what it's like to be there in the middle of Mississippi, in a town that is, very close and quaint, and, it's real and fun to be there. That's what that is. And it's all love. And I just fell in love with being there, and everybody welcomed me in, made me part of that scene. And so there's so many great musicians that have come through there.
Miss
A lot
Levee.
of people play. Jesse Cottonstone, Galia Volta played there. I saw Bobby Rush play there for the 50th anniversary. You've got Ryan Lee Crosby, Robert Connolly Farr, some really amazing musicians come through Bentonia. Libby Ray Watson, so it's great. She's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, everyone you mentioned, including you all are amazing. My family and I was trying to get out there to meet you this past summer, but that storm was like, it's all right. I'm coming out there with my National and my Gretsch.
Bring them. He would love it. I mean, he loves to be there. It's hard to get him away from there. He loves to be there. But if you go there, you're going to see him. And he's going to play some blues for you, and he's going to teach you what he knows. And I love that about Jimmy, because so many mentors or so many older blues musicians have felt that they can't pass that down, or they don't think that people are interested for whatever reason. But Jimmy has been really vocal about it and willing to share. That's so great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, one last thing before I forget. This was there it is, King Biscuit. You performed this past festival, right?
Yes, the Biscuit. I love it.
Hey, how you doing if you're watching?
Hey, everybody.
So talk to us about that real quick before we wrap up. While it's coming up, I want to make sure we get it all in here.
We are not going to get it all in, because I did a lot in 2023, and when I think back on it, I'm like, what was I thinking? That's crazy. I did too much. But the Biscuit was so much fun, and it's been a while since I have, worked at it. I sat in with my cousins last year. I got some cousins in the WB Rockin' Band. I also used to be in the Fieldstones. So they were out there playing, and I came to see them and just, visiting with my family. Ended up playing this year, and that was just such a awesome experience. The stage was amazing. The artist lineup this year was fantastic across the board on all the stages. I got to perform there after Demetria Taylor, opening for Robert Finley and Jimbo Mathis's set, and with some of my really great friends. So I had Donnan Johnson and Robert Allen Parker. Donnan from Louisiana, New Orleans, Robert from Memphis. I had Jan Hartman on harp come all the way in, from Portugal. We had Takuto Asano from Japan. and Ben Levin from Cincinnati, Ohio, and they were both the Pine Toppers. So we had Pine Toppers and Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
And we did a thing. We were like, Pine Toppers and Blue Bloods merge. So it was so much fun.
But my kids are, well, they're not kids anymore. They're Pine Toppers.
You know, look, I love it. I love that program. Have met some really great people through there. And that, what I love about it is that emphasis on musicianship. I don't work for Pine Top. I'm just helping them out, y'all. This is a free endorsement. I don't get paid for this at all. But I'm just going to say, I really do appreciate us bringing up some musicians in that tradition. The plan was phenomenal, and to have them join me, I went through Betty Carter Jazz Ahead residency. And so I was there the first year after she died, but that introduced me to musicians who would then, you know, allow me to grow in different settings, in different situations. And so we should all be looking after these Pine Toppers and thinking to ourselves, well, is this a program that we can get behind that will be great to work with these musicians and kind of treating them, treating them as far as professional musicians? How do we enter into a new era of this blues culture? And cultivation of young musicianship is always important. If I didn't have those types of mentors, I wouldn't be me right now. But I started going out at 14, 15 with some really amazing musicians, Billy Gibson, the great harmonica player, Diane Price, fantastic vocalist and piano player. These people and my uncle, they took interest in me, and they put me in professional situations that allowed me to thrive. So I'm hoping to do that, and it was great to have them join me. Whoa. So I'll be looking out. You know, I'm watching your kids. I'm looking. Let's see what they're doing, y'all. I got high hopes, guys.
Yeah, we plan on coming back.
Well, it's like, come on, let's play.
Oh yeah. So good, sister. It was great. I have to. Is there anything that you thought I would ask or wanted me to ask that I did not ask?
No. Look, you covered a lot of ground here. You covered a lot of ground here, but I would say, you know, a lot of people have been asking me, like, what are my next steps and what am I gonna do? And, you know, will there be more blues? I mean, I can just tell everybody I am super overwhelmed by the reception of this project. I don't know a lot of people. My uncle never got reviewed this much. So I think people see the significance and the importance of establishing Minnie in her proper place in the blues Gotha. And I think that came across, and I'm grateful for that coming across, because that's literally what's in it for me. Like, I can sing any style of music. I'm happy singing music. I love the blues. And there's a lot of different styles and directions I could go in that genre alone. So for me right now, it's about the ancestral veneration, and it's about the spotlight to also make it easier for women to perform and to follow their passion in music and entertainment of this sort, and also to just shine a light on, it doesn't really have to be that hard now. We could make it easier.
Right, all the way around across the board, right?
Yeah, we literally don't have to struggle about the same struggles that we had on the certain frequencies, you know, the certain those wavelengths.
I'll leave it there and say worried. That's it.
We could change it up.
So, good sister, we're going to wrap up. First and foremost, thank you for hanging out and talking about this wonderful album. Let's put this up real quick one more time. When the Levee Breaks, the music of Memphis Minnie.
Oh, my girl.
Two-time Grammy-nominated producer, guitarist Charlie Hunter, Best Blues Album of 2023, Bayou Blue Radio Is that Blue or Blues Radio?
Blues Radio. I think it's in the. I don't know if it was the best one, but I think they said I'm in there.
Okay. Blues 21 and Roots Music Rep. That's what I'm talking about.
They were really kind.
The album here, right? They get the album at your website?
Oh yes, definitely can get it there. You can get it at the Little Village website. You know, it's a Google away.
All right. Where can they find you? Where can the good people find you?
They can find me all streaming. You can get it on Spotify, iTunes, you know, Bandcamp, all these places, Port Merch, and you can go to www.CandiceIvory.com to find out all the latest or read any reviews or information. Or you could, if you're interested in getting one of Jimmy Duck Holmes' prints, you can go to www.newsouthernvintage.com. There's only a few of those left. So all that money is being raised for Bentonia Blues Festival in June. So that's also another thing.
Right. Because you're also an artist. We didn't discuss that, right? You said it wasn't a lot we were going to get to. Because you're also a different kind of artist with painting and drawing and things, folk art, right? Kelly is saying that she needs a copy of this project for her radio show. I want you to take down her email address, because Sister Kelly is a premier traditional artist within herself, and she gives us so much support, and I'm just so honored because of the work she does is extremely amazing.
Absolutely. I'm hip to Kelly. Jolly awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in. Yeah.
So
we have to get you one.
All right. So I want us to go out on Crazy Crime Blues. What you think about that?
You going out on the intensity.
You got to.
That's the intense one.
Great folks. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. Sister Candice, you know this is a long time coming. I'm happy you finally had a chance to do it.
Yes, we did. We finally got it in.
They got to hear this.
Thank you all.
I just can't help myself.